Marty Evans, would you please come up and introduce today's speaker?
It's my pleasure today to introduce Carol Callan, and I would offer this comment. We've had, and today counting as number two voices of the Buffaloes. You've heard the resonant, very deep-voiced Mark Johnson for football and basketball. If you have ever listened to women's basketball, CU style, you will have heard Carol Callan. So when she speaks, if you want to close your eyes and think, yep, I've heard her before. She did that for about 35 years. She is one who has been extensively involved with the Olympics, in which her group, that she'll tell more about, there were, 7 gold medals. The first was in Atlanta, and then most recently 2020 in Tokyo. She also is involved with the International Basketball Federation, and in that organization there have been 4 of the gold, 4 golds in the World Cup. In addition to this, when Bill Anderson was formulating this slide, he said, she's got so many things going. I can't list all these halls of fame, but she only has 4. The most recent was the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, which was this last August in Knoxville. And so she's pretty well steeped in this field. In addition to this, she and her husband, Dave, have 2 sons, and they have a grand dog. And the grand dog is John Cloud. So we would welcome Carol to give us the skinny on women's basketball, because she can tell you that forever. Thank you so much.
I need a grand dog because I don't think I'm going to have grandkids. Anyway, thank you for having me. I look around the room, I see the Stockers. Hello? Mr. Rutherford, there's a lot of people. I spent 17 years at Fairview, and actually it was almost like 40 years as the CU radio analyst. So this is my community. My family moved to Colorado Springs, and we were there for quite a period of time when I took the job with USA Basketball, and that was in '95. So it's now good to be back. I've moved into a consulting role as I'm president of FIBA in the Americas, and so I can live here. And COVID has all these silver linings. One is I could work remotely here from Boulder anyway. We bought the Callan family home in Fraser Meadows, and so I've been working remotely there for a couple of years, and now as a consultant, I'm working permanently remotely. So things are good. Things are good. So thank you for having me. Hello to everybody on Zoom. I've spent a lot of time on Zoom. I'm well aware of the time limit. Put my phone here so I can make sure I don't go over. I spent so much time as an analyst on the radio, and if you've watched basketball or listened to it, you know that after a basket is made, there's about 3 seconds you get to say something. So I hope to be brief, but I also can't help myself when I'm no longer under that time crunch. But what I hope to do today is what I learned as a radio analyst, and that is, number 1, to tell a few stories. Number 2, I hope to have you fall in love with women's Olympic team basketball. We all live in our communities and we watch during the Olympics, but beyond that, we don't always necessarily follow it. We have our favorite team, and once every 4 years, your favorite team, I hope, is the women's Olympic basketball team. So today we're going to talk a little bit, I'm so impressed with your organization, and I'm always impressed with people that live in Boulder. So it would make sense that this place is flooded with really talented people. What I hope to do is give you a little bit of why we're successful, aside from the fact that the best players and coaches coach on our teams. But what our culture is, what lessons we've learned that maybe you can take into your families, your work, the Rotary Club. So there's, in my world, I pay attention to these things. The female Olympians, so not just women's basketball players, the big question is, why do they play? What motivates them to play? Here are the top 5 reasons. They're the most competitive people on earth. They have a great time with it, and they love playing against the best. So it is fun. They want to be the best. I'm not going to read everything to you as you go through this. These are the top 5. Notice what's missing. These are the bottom ones. So it's a mindset that I'm going to go over with you. I don't want to be naive, okay? Everybody that's an Olympian nowadays is a professional athlete. Our Olympians are professional athletes. They get their money playing on their pro teams. We don't pay them to play in the Olympics. They do that for other reasons. So this is a pretty interesting comment by Sue Bird. I'm not going to test you if you know who Sue Bird is, but hopefully you have a little sense of this. She is a 5-time Olympic gold medalist. Now think of that. She's like 41, 42 years old right now, and she just said she's going to play another summer for Seattle. But I think her comments say it all. That's why they love to play. They are surrounded by great athletes. It's not just upon one person's shoulder, it's collective. And so that will be a major theme here. This is the first team that I was involved in. I was hired in 1995 to be the director of this national team. I want you to look at the person in the top left, top row, Steele Berry. So the person on the bottom left is Tara Vanderveer. Tara was the head coach. She's the coach at Stanford who's playing CU tonight here in Boulder. And Seal was an assistant coach on this team. I was fortunate to be with Tara for a year with this team. There is a 3-part 30 for 30 on ESPN coming out this summer that will chronicle that team. So I'm just in the process of watching the treatment that ESPN has put in on it. I think you will enjoy it. So, female basketball players, who are we? So in 1995-96, we did media training because it was so new. And what they said to a person as we went through this training before we embarked on our year-long program is they just want to be known as more than basketball players. And that is a consistent theme. All the way through today, and the WNBA players have done a wonderful job of being about more than just basketball. And this is, they will sign autographs, they'll be with kids. It's just their DNA. But who are we today? It really is showing who you are.
Okay.
So read this statement. And I have a brother who said, Carol, do they really need to say all of this? And I think, yeah, they do. They are more than just basketball players, and this is a major part of their life. So as you read this, this is by a player who's a 2-time gold medalist. I think her team at UConn won several national championships. When she was at the age of 31, she stepped away from basketball. It's Maya Moore, who is hugging President Obama right there. She stepped away from basketball to take up the cause of a family friend who was wrongly incarcerated in Missouri. And there is a 30 for 30 on her called Breakaway that talks about her journey, and he is now no longer in jail, and the story is nice because they just recently got married. So it was an interesting thing. I want you to remember this picture, though, with President Obama and Maya Moore. because the whole world wanted to get that hug from President Obama and be in a picture with him. This is relatable a little bit later. So, what is it that we do that makes a difference and why we win? It's all about culture. It's all about identifying the values that are important to us. Roy Disney, Walt Disney's brother, once said, "When principles are clear, decision-making is easy." That's what I've lived on for the last 26 years as a national team director. So these are our core values. And I'm going to go over them a step at a time. So, we're lucky. If you want to be the best, remember the number one reason for wanting to play, you're very, very competitive. If you want to be the best, you pursue excellence every moment of the day. And these athletes have a different mindset. But the important thing is a clear, compelling goal. You, as the Rotary Club, to me, have several very clear, compelling goals. And once you have that, you're set. You're going to work hard for that. The other thing is that you want to get better every single day, kind of mentioned that, and you're going to sacrifice yourself for the greater good. We could have a discussion on our society right now, but we won't. But I think this is really, really important. Teamwork and maturity. So Tara Vanderveer in 1995-96 had a quote of the day. One of them was about maturity. Maturity is when you think more of others than yourself. It has nothing to do with age. And that is really, really important in our world because everybody's really good and thinks they're the best player. So what is it that you do to get them to play together as a team? You're a good teammate. You set good screens. We played China in the 2016 Olympics in Rio. And if you're a basketball fan at all, we made 46 field goals. 40 of those came off of an assist. That's amazing. That's what a good team is. So these two, teamwork. So if you follow women's basketball, that's Sue and Diana, only Diana's on the left, Sue's on the right. Diana has her hand up, 5, because our team won, those two in particular won their 5th gold medal in Tokyo. Athletes will tell you the best description of what it is that teamwork is, and Sue Bird made it very, very simple. No one cares about individual stats. And you can apply that to anything in your world to make sense of that. Relationships. So this might be part of my favorite one. I learned at Fairview High School about relationships and how, you know, I was a math teacher and a basketball coach for my first 8 years. You know, in front of students, you better build a relationship with your team. You better build a relationship with kids. You better know how to communicate with them because they know a fake person and they know when you're not telling the truth very quickly. Now, the good thing about young people is they forgive you fairly quickly. As I became athletic director and assistant principal, you're dealing with fires, and parents at that point aren't so forgiving. So it taught me you better do a good job on the front end, or you're going to be putting out fires all the time, and it isn't going to be that much fun. So, relationships, care more than others. Gino Auriemma at the University of Connecticut, he's a 2-time Olympic coach for us. He just says, you know, we care more than others. Our university cares more. They spend more. Well, okay, everybody will say they care more, but do you really? And that's an important piece I'll talk about here in a second. Customer service. the ah moment. I'm a big Disney person. So if you get a chance to do this, you should. Disney did a seminar with the US Olympic Committee, and they talked about customer service. And the guy that talked about the ah moment. Because Disney wants you not only to come once, they want you to come every year, right? And a lot of people do that. Well, in our Olympic program, we want the best players to play over and over and over, and in Sue and Diana's case, 5 times. So you have to create those ah moments. The way you do that, think of Disney. How many of you have been to a Disney hotel? Okay, enough. When you go out for the day and the maid comes in and cleans, does she not put a little Disney Mickey Mouse towel on your pillow? When we first went there with our kids when they were little, they took my son's teddy bear, which was actually a Disney Goofy thing, and put it in bed and put the little cover up on it, and next to him was this little Mickey Mouse made out of a towel. And you go, ah, it's so important, customer service. And they have a million things that they do at Disney that we don't have time to talk about, but it's the ah moments. It's the under-promise and over-deliver. A lot of people like to tell you how great they are, and then they never live up to it. So I don't necessarily under-promise, but I try to over-deliver. Here's an example. The guy was saying, you can't imagine it. And they're guys that are cleaning the streets, that are at the ice cream shop, all that kind of stuff. They're the ones that get asked questions like this. Somebody comes up and goes, what time is the 3 o'clock parade? And what's your first reaction? You dumbbell, it's at 3 o'clock. They're taught, don't ever make that person feel bad. But your response is, the parade is at 3 o'clock, and the best place to watch it is right over there at that part of the street. So what you do is you don't embarrass anybody, and you give them more information than they thought they needed. I've tried to live my life through that as well. So the next one's obvious. Treat others the way you want to be treated. The little guys. So go back to care more than others. Here's a 4-time Olympian, Lisa Leslie. That's her response. And it's very true. When they know you care and you want them to be the best they can be, that's all you need. Accountability. This one is, responsibility, but not all the time do you know the answer. Sometimes you just have to figure it out. 3x3 basketball made its debut at the Olympics this year. It's a very special part in my heart because I've been involved for 10 years trying to develop our 3x3 program at USA Basketball, and our women qualified and won the gold medal. There's no coaching allowed during 3x3 basketball. It's like tennis. You have a coach that helps you, but then you got to be on the floor and you got to figure it out. Wonderful sport. And if you get a chance to watch it, you should. Leadership. Competency and character. The chairman of our board is a former chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Marty Dempsey. He brings a little military leaning to us every once in a while, but competency and character. You got to be good, but you also have to be a good person. There's an author, Sam Walker, who wrote a book called The Captain Class. Terrific. He studied all these great teams, and the one thing they all had, which was interesting, was a great captain. So it's important to know what you stand for. You can't be a good leader unless you know who you are. And then, we do work on world peace, honest to God. At least I do. Most people don't like us. And so I do my little bit to try and persuade them every day that it is we're a pretty good country. So here's my leadership. be observant. How many of you go to a CU football game, you are close to the aisle, and all of a sudden somebody's walking down the aisle, there's a big play, they stop and they watch, and they have no idea all the people that they're in the way of. Okay, Joe Biden, regardless of your politics, he's a very nice man. In that same picture, Barack Obama was trying, hugging people, and everybody's trying to get a picture with Barack Obama. I'm standing behind Barack Obama because I'm not going to break in on athletes. They can do their thing, but I'm trying to stand there and have a friend take a picture. Joe Biden's watching all of this. He comes up, puts his arm around me, he says, "Hey, coach, you want a picture?" Okay, that's what a vice president does, but I also really think he does think more of others than himself. I have one more story on being observant. In this picture, you will see right there in the middle, I hope, Bill Clinton. And about 2 people to that side is me with very curly hair that I used to have when I was at Fairview. So our 95 team ran with Bill Clinton, and only the players and coaches could be with them. Special exception was made for me as the administrator to go, and they made me the media contact for the White House press corps. So we got in we got in a big SUV, he got in a limo, and we went to this base, which was at the Potomac River, to run. Well, the White House press corps follows in this big SUV as well, and they could have cared less who I was. Until after we ran, we went down to the banks of the Potomac River, and we were stretching, and he says, "Hey, ask me any question. What do you want to know?" So we did all of that. We now start to go back to our SUV, and all the White House press corps wants to talk to me about, "What do you say? What'd you talk about? What was going on?" So fortunately, the person that's with us says, "Mrs. Callan will entertain the White House press corps on the White House lawn." So we go back, get in our SUVs, we go back to the White House, and he invited the team into the Oval Office. So the team goes with them, I turn around, and I'm now standing there entertaining the White House press corps on the lawn. And the team didn't really want me to say much of what they talked about, so I'm kind of trying to not say much. Well, pretty soon the press corps is not interested in me. Everybody disappears. I turn around, and I'm there all by myself, looking at the back of the White House. So here's where I was observant. I had been watching West Wing faithfully for a long time, and I knew that this row of bushes kind of led to the Oval Office, but I also knew that I shouldn't go that way because that's only where the president goes in, but I was going to go this way. So honest to God, I am now by myself walking into the White House. Now, you all have a lanyard on that says you're allowed to be there. I go in and I'm looking and I see this guy in, honest to God, the London fog jacket with an earpiece in, standing like this in front of a door. And I went up to him and I said, "Could you tell me where the Oval Office is?" He points me over there, and sure enough, there are the 3 secretaries that sat outside President Jed's Oval Office, and I go in and there we are in the Oval Office. So I was observant, I could figure it out, and I got myself inside the Oval Office. There's more stories, but don't have time for those. So being a leader, you have to work harder than others, you have to have a sense of humor, and then you need to enjoy the successes. This is Gino Auriemma and Doug Bruno. Gino is at UConn. He was the Olympic coach in 12 and 16. Doug was his assistant. He's at DePaul. These guys were wonderful. They loved going out to dinner every night, enjoying a good bottle of wine, and enjoying the successes that you work really hard to get. They also have a tremendous sense of humor. And imagine as we were traveling around the world, putting our luggage, at the airline counter, how much luggage we had, these guys would wait till I was done with all of that and waited for me. That doesn't happen very often. So that's an important piece of being a leader as well. Be Curious, this is our 95, 96 team. Years later, at a reunion with the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, Tara Vanderveer in the front, you know, I have great things to say about Tara. We spent a year together. She's the most curious person in the world. And she would get in a taxi cab and ask the driver, do you watch women's basketball? Why not? Because she's always trying to learn. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Fairview High School, I made so many mistakes. I was still afraid to make the mistakes, but that was a forgiving place to make some mistakes. And I continue to make mistakes. The big tall person on the right, that's Ann Donovan. She was a 3-time Olympian. She's 6 feet 8 inches tall. She was our 2008 Olympic coach. I love her dearly. She no longer is alive. But in 1980, we boycotted the Olympics because Russia had invaded Afghanistan. Sounds a little familiar. And you've got to be resilient. And things aren't going to always happen for you. She's resilient. She got to go in 84 and 88, and she later became the Olympic coach. Stick with it. The ultimate motivation to get people to do something there's 3 things. You can think them a little bit, but I'm going to keep moving here so it's not so long. Play. What does that mean? It's got to be a game. It's got to be fun for you. Passion. You have to be so totally committed that you will spend the amount of time necessary. And purpose. How many of you in your life are always looking for purpose? Man's Search for Meaning is a great book by Viktor Frankl. Seems appropriate here. He was a Holocaust survivor, and he talks about purpose in life. You have purpose here through the Rotary Club. It pales a little bit as I think that a gold medal is the purpose, because that's just playing a game we love. But it is so important to have all 3 of these things. These were the surviving coaches. Kay Yao's not there. Sue Gunter is not there. And now Pat Summitt is no longer with us as well, nor Ann Donovan. But these were coaches that were honored in Denver at the Final Four. This is Teresa Edwards. She is another 5-time Olympian. And another question is, what makes a good coach? What makes a good leader? Athletes boil it down to a very simple, someone who makes me better. So you're starting to see the mindset here. So culture, the way we do things. I'm going to talk just briefly about it. This is Dawn Staley. As she was a 3-time Olympian as a player. She was the flag bearer for the entire U.S. delegation in Athens in 2004, and she is the national team coach. She was our Olympic coach here just recently in Tokyo. And this is her definition of culture. Again, it talks about competitor. Where do you begin? Many times it comes from failure. We didn't win in 92 or 94, and we changed our culture for 96. Go to the bottom. That's part of your 4 tests. That is so incredible, because if you don't tell the truth, then you really don't want the person you're talking to be any better. Now, you have to deliver it in a fairly decent way, but Tara Vanderveer and Gino Auriemma, who probably are the most successful of our Olympic coaches in general, they're really good at telling the truth. This is Tamika Catchings, Hugging Maya Moore. Tamika Catchings is an incredible leader because she has a lot of the qualities of competency and character that I mentioned. Keys to a strong culture. Relationships. If you're the boss, boy, it better not just be a top-down all the time. Communication, leadership. Everybody has to buy in. Everybody. If you don't all buy in, it just isn't going to work. I think we're seeing, we could have another discussion on CU football right now in the transfer portal, but you got to buy in. You got to buy in. And so sometimes you got to go a little lower to build back up your culture. I don't have any inside information on that. Remain calm. This one's really big. There was a study of Fortune 500 CEOs. The one quality that they all had in that study was the ability to remain calm. I think that's very true of as an athlete and as a coach. And the last two are obviously important as well. This is our 2016 team. The youngest player on this team is really close to the middle, Brianna Stewart. This is a mindset person for me. She was the youngest in 2016. She's going to be the up-and-coming leader. This is her comment. And it's not that complicated. She's just trying to build relationships and then getting after it and working hard. That's all. So this is Brianna Stewart. First off, her arms. When she was 14, first starting out for her wingspan was 6'10". It's over 7 feet now. So I like this picture just because you can see her arms. But look at what she's accomplished in this young age. She's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, a 2-time World Cup gold medalist. She was the MVP of the 2018 World Cup and the 2020 Olympic Games. She's a 4-time national champion at UConn, the 4-time most outstanding player. She started with us when she was 14 on our U17 World Cup gold medal team. Then she played the next year on our 2019 World Cup team. 2 years later, she was still young enough to be on the 2019 World Cup team and was MVP. She's really somebody you want to watch moving forward. And, Sue and Diane are 5-time Olympians. She will probably be the most decorated women's basketball player if she stays healthy. So, culture, everyone guards it. The team goal has to be the most important thing. Treat others the way you want to be treated, and it's the little guys. I was at the Mohegan Sun with Gino. Our team played in the WNBA All-Star game several years ago. And as we're leaving and going out, there's a woman in a wheelchair over here as we're going to get our car, or his car from the valet. And this woman's sitting way over there. Gino, is that you? Is that you, Gino? And Gino went right over to her. I mean, the guy's smart, season ticket holders. She said, talks to him, says, now, Gino, you come visit, you come to dinner sometime. So it's the little people that are so important to your culture. The other thing, I walked New York City with him, and the guy is obviously well known because of his success, because of ESPN, because he lives in Connecticut. We'll walk a block in New York City, which isn't that far, and it'll take us a half hour to do that because anybody that stops him, that knows him, that he has no idea who they are, he will talk to them. He is one of the most curious, nice guys you'll ever meet. And I know you might have an opinion of him based on what you see on television. He understands all of this. Attention to details. Don't forget any of that. Okay, that's my story. Oh, figure it out, and you get to do this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. So I'm in charge of taking questions today, and we're going to kind of flip back and forth from Zoom and to the people in the room. And I'm also going to ask those people in the room to introduce yourself when I call on you. But we're going to start first with a question online from TK Smith.
Hey, Carol, I'd like you to weigh in on the growing controversy of transgender people competing in women's sports, most recently highlighted by the fact with Leah Thomas swimming at the University of Pennsylvania.
Well, this is a hot topic right now, no doubt. And, you know, it's almost, as with everything, it becomes politicized. So we live under the rules of FIBA, which is the International Basketball Association, and during Olympics, the IOC. And at this point, when I first started in 1996, women would get a swab in their mouth, and then they would be tested to see if they were female or not. Well, that was rather humiliating, to the point now where, and this is not transgender, so I know I'm getting off topic a little bit, to the point now where it is only if you suspect someone isn't quite what they say they are that you can protest. Doesn't happen very often. There was, of course, the runner in South Africa. And what the story is, there's a real timeline or a real line of from basically testosterone and how much you have from one side to the other. Where transgender information is interesting is, you know, nobody's complaining if a female wants to become a male and then compete on a men's team, because there's seemingly no advantage. The difference is if you are a male who then wants to become a female, which he accurately described, there's a base level of muscle. However, once you make the switch and you start the hormone therapy, you lose some of that. Now, I'm not in a position to say what swimming should do. I just know that it's really an interesting topic right now, and I can see both sides, but I think I still want to keep sport fair. That's why we have a U.S. anti-doping agency and a world anti-doping agency. We haven't had the issue arise in women's basketball, although there was a player at Georgetown several years ago that was a young man who became a woman, but nobody that has taken away a spot yet from a female. You know, this is just going to be discussed and try, you know, they're going to try and figure it out. I'm not giving you an answer, sorry, but I have none.
All right.
It's hard.
Hi, Carol. Thanks for coming to speak with us. I did work on the bio slide, and I feel like one of the things that I saw was that in your tenure, there was, I think, only one loss by the international team. And I'm curious kind of what happened and what lessons maybe you took from that.
We've lost more than that, but in the Games World Cup, when I've been involved, we've had just one loss, and it was in 2006 in Brazil at the World Championship. We lost in the semifinals to Russia, and then got third. So what we learned was, and again, I'm looking at it from my standpoint, we needed to select our team in a different way. We did it, and this is details, and sorry to bore you if I do, but we had been selecting players that we said, look, if you'll commit to being on our Olympic team and coming to all of our training camps, we'll say you're gonna be on the Olympic team. And we started small. We started with 6, then we went to 7 to 8 to 9, so that we then only filled in 3 once you got closer. Well, leading into Brazil, Lisa Leslie, who was going to be on our team, her uncle was in a car accident, she couldn't come. Yolanda Griffith, who was a post player on our team, got injured, she couldn't do it. And so what we ended up with was some people that were brought in last minute that had never trained with our team. Now, what coach is going to put them in a game when they've never practiced? We had 2 players, one who'd been with us several times, but another one who showed up that basically game day and had never practiced. So what we learned was, we need to switch how we're doing this. Number one, once we committed to them, several players still didn't come to some training camps because they had good reasons. So we decided, and which is what we do now today, is we have a big pool of players. We don't commit that you're going to be on the Olympic team, but we're going to have a few training camps over the course of the 4-year period leading into an Olympics or to the World Cup. And if you come, you know, you're going to know the coach is going to know you, you're going to be better prepared, you'll have a better chance of being selected, but we're not going to select until we get closer to the event. So that's kind of what we're doing. What's interesting with that is I've been the chair of the selection committee, and I'm the one that gets to call the players when they make the team, which is fun, and when they don't make the team, and that is really not much fun. So, you know, it used to be we didn't have to make any calls because we picked 9 and then added 3, whereas now we have about 30, 35 in our pool, and we get down to 12. But that was the nuts and bolts thing that we changed. The other thing is that athletes don't get as excited about a World Cup like they do the Olympics. They all want to be on the Olympic team. So we've kind of tied all this together that you may not want to come to the World Cup, but then, you know, it's going to be a little harder maybe for you because other people have been to a lot more to make that Olympic team. So it becomes more of, you know, you need to be a part of everything.
So, thank you. So we have one more question. It's from Merrill, and he's on Zoom.
Yeah, thanks so much for speaking to our club. I'm a lover of women's sports at the highest level, team sports, so I'm right on board with you. My question concerns something I've been interested in for a while, and that's injuries in team sports at the highest level. And not only the injuries that take a player out for extended period of time, but the injuries that are debilitating, often covered up, yet affect players and games as they are played. What's your thoughts on those injuries?
Well, shame on anybody that covers up anything would be my first comment. You know, you have to, if you go back to the idea of you want players to play in as many Olympics and be on our teams as often as they can be, if you're not treating them well, they're not going to play and no one else is either. So for instance, we'll have players that are in our pool that get injured. Brianna Stewart had an Achilles tear when she was playing over in Russia. And so she was out for a year. And we had camps and we had smaller competitions. We didn't force her to come. You know, the long-term nature of our athletes, and again, we're dealing with the very best. The other thing you have to understand is all of these players get paid by at least one other team. If they are only in the WNBA, they get paid by that team, and they come to us again not to be paid. So we cannot damage that relationship with WNBA teams, nor the athlete, to abuse them in any kind of way, especially like that. Many of them play in the WNBA and they play overseas during the winter because these are all the best players, remember. They can make a lot of money overseas. So if we don't treat them well, our training staff has to be top notch or it just isn't going to work. If there's you know, I know of some stories of, you know, players that have felt like they've been forced to participate even though they're injured. That is just a very short-term selfish way at looking at your athlete. And I would hope that we would never do that. So I hope that answers, that's my opinion on it, quite honestly.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to Golden Rotary and teaching us.
Thank you very much for coming. Sorry about the microphone. Anyway, I think we've learned quite a bit about what goes on in the Olympics, and I know that the ladies work very hard. I've been going to the ladies basketball games near the very beginning. This club used to have a person that would organize a number of us to go to a women's basketball game every year, and sometimes we had a a pre-game dinner off to the side, and well, anyway, lots of memories, lots of good players, Lisa Van Gore and Shelly Sheets and a bunch of others. Anyway, in your name, Boulder Rotary is donating 100 doses of vaccine to the Polio Plus Fund. We're very close to getting it off the face of the earth. And for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. Thank you. You know, you all know Sox Walseth. Sox Walseth worked for my father-in-law, Dean Callan, and Sox was the women's coach before Seal Berry came. And actually, Renee Portland before him, that's when I started with the radio. And the thing I learned along the way is storytelling and making those athletes real to the community was very, very important. And the community has embraced the Buffs tremendously over the years. So thank you for that as well. So thank you.